Welcome back. Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy here for the Daily Blob, where we say, well, you know, the AI war between the United States and China may in fact destroy the entire world, but it's gonna be funny to watch. It's gonna be funny to watch. So anyways, I've been talking about this whole AI war between the United States and China for a while now, as the United States tries to prevent Chinaman from putting our AI in their pocket, and Chinaman says, we don't need no honky AI. And they come out with their own systems and how this is just going back and forth. And how I think it's funny that the Trump administration and others have basically telegraphed that they believe one of our global advantages economically is artificial intelligence technology. So the reason that we have to stay at the forefront of AI is so that we can maintain our power in the world, which basically means China is developing stuff and then giving it away for free. Honky? Honky says this is valuable? Oh, Honky says, yeah, he's gonna sell this so that he can pay for his mortgage and for his kid's private school. Oh, Honky's gonna do that and then sell it so he can buy bombs to drop on us. Well, you know what we're gonna do, Cracker? We're gonna give away for free. How you gonna sell you expensive ass technology crap when we give away the exact same technology crap for free? Like, oh, this is why you do not tell the other side what you think is valuable, because they'll start giving it away for free. Which is basically what's happening. Right there, because that's the whole thing, right? You hear about ChatGPT and Anthropic and all these companies, and this is where the value is. And so China just keeps coming out with models and basically giving them away for free. Which, sums up 2025. Sums up 2025. So this is a new model. Coming from Alibaba-backed Moonshot. Releases new Kimi AI model that beats ChatGPT and Claude in coding, and it costs less. I think this is going to be a more and more interesting question as we move forward with these models when it comes to the whole cost question, right? So it's not that that cost has been irrelevant up until this point in time, right? Cost has always been a differentiator up until this point in time. But one of the things that I've argued is that these models are becoming so good now that for many tasks, I would argue maybe even 95, 99% of tasks, you don't need the latest model to do something. You can actually use a model, maybe that was 1 or 2 years old. Again, if you look at artificial intelligence as specific functionality, you focus on the functionality you need from a model. One of the things you might find is that these older models do what you need quite fine. The older models don't require as many resources. The older models are less expensive to run. And so when you're doing something at scale, especially when you look at AI architecture, which is a complete disaster at this point in time. Anyways, when you're pumping so many requests through these models, if you can decrease the cost of the model usage by 50% or more, that can be a big savings, right? For you and me, I have an API key to OpenAI. What, I spend $5 a month, $10 a month. I don't really care if the cost goes down by 50%, right? If you're a real company though, right? If you've got a web app out there or something, you're putting all these requests through AI. Right, your AI cost might be, incredibly expensive, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars per month. Right, think about how they want to design AI systems right now. A lot of these AI systems are being designed without caching services. So basically, where requests and responses aren't cached, so you can pull them from a local database, which would be very resource light, a lot of the requests are going back and forth. So if you get into a chat session, right? So you're doing a support session with an AI powered chatbot. Every time you enter something, that's a request to the LLM, right? So if everybody ends up doing 15 requests to an LLM to solve their problem, and you have thousands, tens of thousands of people hitting your app per day, that is a lot of AI utilization. Or if you start talking about with these IVRs, interactive voice response systems, so auto attendants, when you call up someplace and you say, hey, I need sales or whatever else, a lot of that is now being powered by AI. Every time you say something, that's getting processed through AI, and so those costs go up. And so if you can find that a 1 or 2 year old model, a quote unquote lesser model, does what you need it to do, then why do you want to pay more money for a ChatGPT or whatever else? And that's one thing that's kind of interesting with this whole the China model thing, is I don't get into testing. Testing these models is like testing graphics cards as far as I'm concerned, right? I just don't care, right? I watch Gamers Nexus. I watch Gamers Nexus every once in a while. And like Gamers Nexus will do these very good like editorial videos, like very journalist-worthy editorial videos about what's going on with the industry. And then most of the time he's just talking about graphics cards. And it's just like charts. It's just charts. And this graphics card does this. And this graphics card does this. And this graphic card does this. I'm like, oh my God. Is this what kids really want to watch nowadays? Hey, did you realize like kids really like looking at spreadsheets? Who would have thought you could make so much money showing people spreadsheets? I guess you're talking about video games. Spreadsheets get excited or whatever. Anyways, that's kind of how I feel about with these LLM tests or these model tests. Like it's just a bunch of spreadsheets, right? This is better here. This is better here, right? And they're doing all this competition at like who's the best. But one of the things that you need to consider is, but which one at a price and performance metric that is good for your company can solve your problem. I don't need it to write the next Shakespeare sonnet that nobody can realize wasn't done by Shakespeare. I don't need it to do, I just need it to answer some specific questions. And I think that becomes interesting, especially with China, as they start putting out more of these models. And even if you want to say that they're lesser, is that a differentiator that's really going to matter that much? The latest Chinese generative AI model to take on OpenAI's ChatGPT is offering coding capabilities at a lower price. Alibaba-backed startup Moonshot released on Friday night its Kimi K2 model, a low-cost open-source large language model, the two factors that underpinned China's based DeepSeek industry disruption in January. So it's supposed to be low cost, and it's supposed to be open source. So low cost if you run it on their systems, and it's open source if you want to run it yourself. There is a little thing that you have to put on your deal if you have like over 200 million users per month. But otherwise, the idea is anybody can simply use this. Coincidentally, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman announced early Saturday that there would be an indefinite delay of its first open source model, yet again due to safety concerns. Safety! What are the safety concerns? Who the hell knows? OpenAI did not immediately respond to a CNBC request for comment on Kimi K2. One of Kimi K2's strengths is in writing computer code for applications, an area in which businesses see potential to reduce and replace staff with generative AI. OpenAI's U.S. rival Anthropic focused on coding with its Claude Opus 4 model released in May. In its release announcement on social media platform X and GitHub, Moonshot claimed Kimi K2 surpassed Claude Opus 4 on two benchmarks and had better overall performance than OpenAI's coding-focused GPT 4.1 model based on several industry metrics. Now, again, you have to be careful with all of this, right? It's a whole bunch of charts. What does that actually mean? Who the hell knows, right? If you have a project, You download it, you run it, you compare versus multiple different models, and you see what the best response is. Quote, no doubt, Kimi K2 is a globally competitive model, and it's open sourced, Wei Sun, principal analyst in AI intelligence at Counterpoint, said in an email Monday. Quote, on top of that, it has a lower token cost, making it attractive for large-scale or budget-sensitive deployments. The new K2 model is available via Kimi's app and browser interface for free, unlike ChatGPT or Claude, which charge monthly subscriptions for their latest AI models. Kimi is also only charging 15 cents for every million input tokens. My God, that's inexpensive. 15 cents for a million input tokens. So 1,000 input tokens is about 750 words. So I don't know, what is that? 750, 7,500, 75,000. I don't know, it's a lot. It's like 750,000 words. So 15 cents to process 750,000 words of input. That's a lot of words of input. And for every 1 million, and $2.50 per 1 million output tokens, according to its website. So the input tokens are the data that you put in, that context window, the data that you put in. The output tokens are the response that you get. So basically, you're paying $2.50 if you're having it write a damn book for you. If you're like, here's a whole bunch of information, write me a book, then you'll pay $2.50. For a lot of it, you're going to be inputting a lot of data and then only asking for some pretty specific responses. So that can be pretty inexpensive. In contrast, Claude Opus 4 charges 100 times more for input, $15 per million tokens, and 30 times more for output, $75. Per million tokens. Meanwhile, for every 1 million tokens, GPT 4.1 charges $2 for input and $8 for output. So any way you go, basically using Kimi, K2 is going to be a hell of a lot less expensive. And why this becomes really interesting is that whole question of where is going to be the value growth over the next 100 years, right? The idea that in Africa and Southeast Asia, that these countries have the most potential for growth, right? Taking people from poverty to middle class, that's the largest growth that you're gonna get. And so the idea being is a lot of these places simply cannot afford American technology. They may like American technology. They may even prefer American technology. But if you've only got so much money, right? You've only got so much money, you're going to buy whatever it is that you can afford. So if you're talking about 15 cents per million input tokens compared to $2 for OpenAI, or $15 for Claude, you're probably going to go with the Kimi, right? And so it is kind of curious to think about how this will flesh out going in the future, especially with this whole AI arms race we have going on. Moonshot AI said on GitHub that developers can use K2 however they wish, with the only requirement that they display Kimi K2 on the user interface if the commercial product or service has more than 100 million monthly active users or makes the equivalent of $20 million in monthly revenue. So most people don't have to worry about. Initial reviews of K2 on both English and Chinese social media have largely been positive, though there are some reports of hallucinations, a prevalent issue. Still, K2 is, quote, the first model I feel comfortable using in production since Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Pietro Scenaro, founder of startup Magic Path that offers AI tools for design, said in a post on X. So there we go. There we go. We keep telling China that they can't have AI, and they keep saying, you know what? We're going to make this crap free or cheap for the rest of the world. Who do you think is going to win in that particular scenario? So it'll be curious. It'll be curious to see how this moves forward. I think this is really significant to be thinking about with my viewers, my students, right? Right? A whole bunch of you are international. Right? Some of you are in the United States, some of you are in Europe, a lot of you are all over the world, right? I've met people from Africa and India and Pakistan, the whole 9 yards, that watch my content, right? And I think that what we're starting to see now is the practical ramifications of politics, right? We have politicians that are trying to direct the progress of technology in other countries. And the politicians in those other countries are saying no, They're doing their own thing, surprisingly. And so we're starting to see more and more of this divide of basically we're starting to see the American, the Western tech stack, and we're starting to see more of the China tech stack. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out over the next decade or two. And it's something that you need to be considering for your technology career when you're going out to try to get jobs or to sell products, right? Back in the day, so when virtualization was the big thing. So you go back about 10 years, right? Virtualization was the big thing, Hyper-V, Citrix, VMware, that type of deal. And what was always fascinating to me in a very frustrating way is I would get people and they would contact me. They're like, Eli, what virtualization certification do I need? Right? Since virtualization was the big thing at that point in time, they're like, what virtualization certificate do I need? And there's Hyper-V for Microsoft, there's Citrix, there's VMware, there's a whole bunch of other flavors of virtualization out there, on top of things like AWS and Azure, DigitalOcean, if you're doing cloud services, the whole 9 yards. And so one of the things I would ask, so what does your boss want? What platform are you using? Right? Or what are the requirements for the project or the organization? What industry expertise or institutional knowledge does your company already have? What legacy systems does your company already have? What maintenance agreements does your company already have? Right? Because that's the thing. Like I don't know, Citrix versus VMware versus Hyper-V. For me, if I'm looking at it, back in the day at least, I would either gone for Hyper-V or VMware on specific instances. Right? If I was on a Microsoft heavy stack or a relatively small deployment, I would do Hyper-V. If I was doing a larger deployment, I would do VMware, especially if I had different operating systems in there, right? So, that's two options there. But that's the thing that you got to think about is, what are your requirements? What does your boss want? What resources do you have? Right, and then I get the snot bubbles. Hey, all I want is an answer. Yeah, no, God damn it. You need to give me more information. Why I bring that up is something to consider is in this, China stack world, US stack world, something for you to be thinking about is which stack should you focus on, right? I talked about that when I got my MCSE. Thankfully, I got my MCSE. Back in 2000, there were two of those stacks, right? The authentication stacks, I suppose. You had Novell NetWare, and you had Microsoft that was built in. So you could become a Novell administrator or you could become a Microsoft administrator. For whatever reason, west of the Mississippi, a lot of people use Novell. East of the Mississippi, a lot of people did Microsoft. I had no idea about any of this because I want to do pewters. Anyways, thankfully I picked right, got my MCSE, and that got me a job. Everything went well, right? But that's just kind of like one of those weird geographic things. I talked about that with PHP and Ruby. You go back to 2012, 2013 timeframe, right? West of the Mississippi, they really love Ruby on Rails. East of the Mississippi, they really love PHP. Ruby was easier to code for. So therefore, it required less labor cost to deploy. PHP was lighter on resources. So in production, it was less expensive, right? I don't know. What do you care more about? Do you care about the cost of employees or do you care about the cost of resources? Right? It just depends on what the hell you're dealing with, right? And so that's one of the things I really want you to be thinking about now, right? If you were a viewer of mine in India, if I haven't scared all my Indian viewers away, or in Africa or someplace else, something to really be considering right now is what stack do you really want to bet on? Right? Do you want to bet on the China stack or do you want to bet on the American stack? Because all of this, it's going to take time and energy to learn the stacks, learn the quirks of the stacks, learn all that kind of stuff, create relationships in the whole 9 yards. What do you want on your resume? Do you want to be an expert at Kimi, or do you want to be an expert at ChatGPT? Right? This is something to really be considering right now, and it'll be curious to see how this goes, especially as right. So like right now, basically right now, we're going in parallel. So the United States and China is basically in parallel, right? We're still under basically the Wintel model of technology, the duopoly model, where how computers work and how networking functions and how AI models work, it's all relatively similar. I'm not saying they don't have differences and we don't have differences, but horseshoes and hand grenades, we're all basically similar. What's going to start to become really, really interesting, though, is as they start to diverge. Think about this, especially like with the Chinese models and the products that they start putting out. What happens when they don't create the English version of it? That's something to consider, right? Because you don't think about that like with like usability, right? User interface. With JFK, John F. Kennedy, right? Everybody talks about JFK creating, the biggest, baddest military service that the world had ever seen, right? They always think about the Navy SEALs, because JFK created the Navy SEALs. But that's incorrect. As I always say, Navy SEALs are fucking pansies. Bitch-ass fucking poodle pansies. You don't know the real implementers of empire? It was the Peace Corps. English as a second language. Sending little pocket protector geeks around the world to teach everybody else how to speak our language. Fucking bitch stomped those little fucking seal poodles. Right? Because that's the thing. Once you get people to speak your language, they have to argue with your words. You own them. You culturally own them. So what becomes interesting to think about with this is, right, with a lot of this technology, it's very close. It's very similar. What happens when they stop creating localized English versions of their products? All right, comes an interesting question. Imagine all those Node.js coders having to learn Chinese. That will be an interesting inflection point with technology. So anyways, what do you think about this? What do you think about Alibaba? Moonshot company coming out with the Kimi K2 AI that apparently can compete with the big boys as far as coding is concerned. What do you think about it being 15 cents per million input tokens compared to a hell of a lot more from anybody else? What do you think about this whole separating of the China and American tech stacks? How do you think that'll work out over the 10 and 20 year mark? Put your thoughts down below. Please remember, whether it's a thumb up, a thumb down, an awesome comment, or a horrible comment, it is all an interaction as far as YouTube is concerned. Do remember that SiliconDojo.com does exist. I'm doing a fireside chat for me in an hour and a half or so with Louis Rossman. And then on Thursday for me, within my timeline, I'm doing a fireside chat with David Cox, a VP for AI models over at IBM. If you're interested in those and future ones, you can go over to SiliconDojo.com and you can join. It's all free, whole 9 yards. And with that, see y'all later.